Hey everybody, Mike Dillard here, and just heading out to the ranch and thought I'd fire up the GoPro and have a little conversation with you guys about an extremely important topic that everyone really needs to master on their journey to becoming a successful self-employed entrepreneur. And it's, in my mind, much more important than strategies and tactics, and that really has to do with your mindset and your relationship with money and with prosperity and with abundance. And I've noticed a dynamic throughout my 10-year career now, building businesses and talking about these topics, which is that for the majority of people out there, especially those in a 9-to-5, that there's one of two dynamics, and it really comes down to this: either money controls you or you control your money. And that's from every sense of that word, but specifically from an emotional sense. If you walk into a Walmart, you are walking into a store where just about every single person in there is owned by money. Money owns the decisions that they make, what they can and cannot do in life, their political views, where their kids go to school, what they eat, what kind of job they have. And it is the limiting factor that is like this 500-pound gorilla on their back that really controls every single aspect of their life, which is really sad. But unfortunately, most people don't learn from their parents or from a teacher or from a mentor that you can control money. And that's really the key to making that switch from a scarcity-based mentality, a poverty mentality, coming from a life of lack where whether you have money or you don't have money, it still has an emotional impact on you and emotional control over you. And as long as you find yourself in that position, you are a slave to money, and you're never going to get the results that you want. So what I want to talk about today is really maybe how to think about money a little bit differently, and to give you some insight into my perspective on it, and specifically when it comes to prosperity, abundance, enjoying the best that life has to offer. And I found it fascinating since the crash of 2008, how the attitude specifically here in America around prosperity and abundance and wealth has changed so dramatically, and how it's almost not cool to strive to be wealthy anymore. It's almost cool to be poor. And a great example of this, look it up if you haven't come across them yet, but the big new trend now is what they call tiny houses. And the younger Generation Y guys and gals are all into building these little itty-bitty 400 square foot, 350 square foot houses on top of a trailer set so they can be towed around behind a car or whatever. And normally they're made out of wood, and they have like a little house and windows, and it's literally a tiny little house. So the popular thing now is to go build these, and I don't remember the total cost. I want to say it's like 10 to 20 grand.
Red light camera ahead.
I want to say it costs like 10 to 20 grand to build one. But people are like taking pride in how small of a house they can live in. Like, that's the point of pride for them, is look. That's a point of pride for them now, is look how little I can get by with. And my God, what a limiting attitude and outlook on life, where your world is so small that you've compacted it into a 400 square foot house, and that's like your dream. And I get that there's environmental reasons and things like that, all kinds of excuses, but frankly, I think that's bullshit. And I think people are copying out on what they're really capable of, and I think that they're turning this into their excuse for a lack of desire to strive for more, or to really believe in themselves, and to dare to be the best that they can be. So I think that that's just a really fascinating trend. But what I want to convey to you guys is, when you see this kind of stuff in the media, and when you see these 99% signs and bumper stickers and all of that crap, put your guard up when you see it, because that is the sign that that individual, in my opinion, has a mental disease. And that's really what an attitude is. It is a mental disease, and it's either going to help you or it's going to hurt you. But it's an idea that can infect other people, just like any other kind of disease can. I promise you, if you go shop at Walmart every single day and you start eating at fast food chains every single day and you start hanging out with that kind of crowd, within a year, you're going to be dead broke, just like they are. On the other end of the spectrum, if you start hanging around with people who are successful, prosperity-minded, working their butts off to change the world and make the world for a better place, you're going to be much more aligned and find yourself closer to where they are than you were previously. So I took a pretty extreme approach to really combat this disease and this attitude that I've just seen spread everywhere, and essentially I decided to give it the middle finger. And part of that is the car that we're driving in now, which is a brand new 2014 Ferrari 458 Spider that I put a deposit down about 6 months ago and got to design every little stitch, nook and cranny of this car, which was a fantastic process. It was built by hand by some of the most amazingly talented engineers on the planet in Italy, and then shipped over here on a boat, and I've been driving it about 2 months ago now. And for those of you who know me, you know that cars are really my hobby and my passion, and I do a lot of off-road racing during the year, the Baja 1000, the Min 400, and now that we've got the Circuit of Americas here in Austin, I'm really looking forward to doing some road racing in this car specifically, so or at least some track days, which will be a lot of fun. So here's my attitude when it comes to material things and things like that. I'm not driving this car because I'm insecure anyway, or I want attention, or any of that other bullshit that people tend to default to when they see someone driving a car like this. My attitude on that is very different, and it changed years and years ago when I bought my very first nice car, which was an Aston Martin V8 Vantage when they first came out, I think in 2007 or 2008, something like that. And it was a transformative experience for me, because all of a sudden it turned one of the most mundane, boring, and wasteful experiences that we have, unfortunately, as human beings today, which is driving your car and running errands, into one of the most unbelievable experiences that you could ever have. And if you've ever sat behind the wheel of a car like this, you know that even just making a milk run down to the grocery store is an unbelievable experience. So it gave me a new appreciation for, you know, what I really look at as pieces of art on wheels, and the design that went into it, and the people and the talent that they have in order to make something like this, you know, real. And so my attitude from that point forward when it comes to experiencing the best that life has to offer, whether that is food or wine or hotels or travel or your home or the art that you have, whatever it may be, whatever you want to spend your money on, that I will only ever buy the best, and that my goal is to experience the best. And it kind of comes down to a spiritual / religious viewpoint for me. And the way I look at it is, you know, God gave these people these unbelievable talents, Michelangelo, Enzo Ferrari, you know, take your pick, your favorite chef, whatever it may be. Bless them with these amazing talents so that all of us could experience, you know, the gifts that come from that. And I almost view it as an insult not to strive to give enough to the world, enough value to the world to get, you know, the financial reward that will allow you to go enjoy those things. I see it as they're gifts for us to experience here, and shame on you, shame on me, if we don't go out and strive to be the best that we can be in order to experience them and to enjoy them. It would be kind of like preparing a meal for 8 hours all day with the freshest ingredients, the most expensive wine you can find, an unbelievable award-winning chef, and then inviting guests over, and the guest sits down and says, oh, no, that's too expensive, that stuff's too nice, I'm just going to have like a peanut butter sandwich. You know, that's how I look at people these days who take pride in not experiencing the best. It's such an insult, and it's such a waste in every regard. So that's my take on money, and I would hope that maybe it gives you a little bit of a different context as well, where this is not about showing off. This is not about, you know, saying I'm better than anyone else. This is really about experiencing, you know, the gifts that God has given us down here on earth while we have that opportunity, because I'm pretty sure they don't have Ferraris in heaven. So when it comes to making that transition from, where you're at now and maybe you're dead broke, how do you make that mental transition? And that's what this is. There's subconscious associations and how you subconsciously associate wealth and money and success, and whether that's a pleasurable association or a negative one. And so you've really got to start to change those associations. And the best way to do that, and the easiest way to do that you can do starting today, is to be very mindful and vigilant of what you allow yourself to be brainwashed by. And I say brainwashed because that's really what's happening every single day to you, 24/7. You are being inundated with messages through the books that you read, the articles that you read online, the videos that you watch, the websites you go to, the employees that you hang out with, the conversations you have with your friends, the music that you listen to. All of that stuff is stimulus that's going into your brain and is either leading you closer to your goal and closer to abundance and prosperity or further away from it. And if you don't have an awareness of that to where you can say, hey, this is not good, and then flip the channel or close the website or whatever it may be, it has a cumulative effect on your mindset very, very quickly, which is why this whole thing of, being broke and poor and living in a 400 square foot house has seemingly become the popular thing to do now, because you've been seeing the articles and the videos about it everywhere. And so the awareness of that attitude is spreading versus an attitude of abundance and prosperity. And so step number one, be on guard against that kind of crap. Step number two, you got to go back to the basics. For me, I go through all of my Tony Robbins stuff every single year. They just came out with a digital version that you can download, on your iPhone. And it's just that kind of programming that I expose myself to on a daily basis. And then making decisions in the real world, like today, that are going to back that up and enforce it. And so, example of that is I never accept change for anything. Coins, quarters, pennies, whatever it may be. If I pay cash for something, I don't accept change because I don't want my life to be around counting pennies and saving money. That money has no control over me. I can make as much as I want. That is my firm belief. And I'm not going to sit here and count coins. I'll put it in the little donation jar, whatever it may be, but I'm not going to limit myself to counting quarters. The same thing goes for, valeting a car. I always valet 100% of the time if one is offered. Even before I could even afford to do that, I did it because it reinforced where I was going to go. Wearing a nice pair of shoes that are polished and that you can take pride in. Again, even if I couldn't quite afford it, I would find a way to go, have that one little piece of clothing that I could put on a daily basis that was an anchor to the prosperity I was moving towards. Another example is, the kind of gratuity that I leave whenever I eat at a restaurant. Many of you know I waited tables for probably 7-8 years. It was the last job I ever had before I went full-time in my business. And so I obviously have a lot of affinity for people in that industry, but it goes back to the abundance mentality as well. So the least I will ever leave is 20 to 25%, even if the service is absolutely horrible. Who knows what kind of stress or problems that person is dealing with that day, that might affect them. But the bottom line is, that might be an extra 10 or 15 bucks. I'm not going to notice it in my bank account the next day, but it'll have a really big impact on them. So that's important to me. But if the service is great, I leave 40 or 50%. And that's just part of the good kind of karma energy out there that is tied to abundance in the world that I live in, and it seems to be working quite well and has been working since I adopted it. So take an accounting of where you sit emotionally with money. If you know that you're not where you should be, if you know that money is controlling you right now, take immediate action to start changing that. And the only way you can change it is to start the reprogramming process. And that has to do, again, listening to stuff like this every day, reading books on personal development every day and abundance every day. Go read the book Abundance. That will totally give you a new perspective on life. Listening to the basics, Tony Robbins, every day. I have it on my iPod and my iPhone, and I put my headphones in the car, and that's what I listen to whenever I'm driving and not filming with you guys. I don't listen to music. I listen to Tony Robbins. every day in my car whenever I'm driving. And it just anchors me, and it puts me in that attitude that I need to have in order to move forward in a really positive mindset on a daily basis. And that's how it's done. There's no other quick trick or way around it. It is a battle of attrition over a world that is unfortunately falling into a really crappy mentality. And it is our really responsibility, as I see it, torchbearers of abundance, as entrepreneurs, to fight that. And so this car is a representation of that. This is my giant middle finger to the poverty mentality taking over the world at the moment. And I hope that you will pick your way, however big or small it may be, to do the same and to stand up and to be an example for others, that we create the lives that we want to create and live in. It is all a mental projection of the thoughts we think on a daily basis. So I hope this brought you some new context, maybe a new way of thinking about money and your relationship with it, and at least, if nothing else, helped you identify that that's something you need to address or not. So until next time, thanks so much, guys. Take care.
I believe there's a huge difference in the way that successful people and unsuccessful people think. And I believe that success itself is not some big mystery that people haven't figured out before, even though when we are struggling and we're fighting and we're just trying to make it through day by day and get better and better and better, it can feel like this arduous, unknowable process. But success has been figured out, and we all know it's a mindset game. I mean, most of success is just about how we use our psychology. I remember when I was going to start my business, and I really wanted to be good at it. I was trying to become an author and a speaker and do these types of videos and do some online training for people on the topics of motivation and marketing. And all these people were saying, well, Brendon, you may or may not be successful at that. You're, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, it's a weird thing. It's not like there's a trait of successful people. You look across history, and successful people, they're not from a given background. They don't come from a specific economic stature. They're not in a position where, they're one demographic or another demographic. I mean, it's all over. I mean, we've got thousands of collective years of history. People succeed. Some people do, some people don't. And I think it more comes down to, how do we manage our mind? And how do we manage our days? And I think that there's a difference between successful people and unsuccessful people in the way they particularly think about approaching something new. I think unsuccessful people, when they have a big dream and they start thinking about what's going to be required to accomplish that dream, they get very limiting in their beliefs about themselves and what's possible. And specifically, they say three types of things. The first thing they often say is, well, I don't know how to do that. So they stop. And they say, I don't have those things. So they stop. Or they say, I don't know, I'm not like those people. I'm not like that. And so they stop. But successful people have a different way. They have the same thing. Everybody dreams. You dream, I dream, successful people dream, people just starting out. Everybody dreams. Everyone has a vision. Everyone, if they could just take 5 minutes today and think about their lives, we could all come up with ways to improve our lives and reach another level of success, joy, happiness, achievement, contribution, fulfillment, soul. We can all elevate. But the challenge is that the unsuccessful people, they keep stopping when they think of what they currently know, have, or are. But successful people say, well, I want to do that, but I don't know how to do that. But instead of stopping, they say, well, then my job is to go learn that. They take their current limitation and they put it on their agenda as a job to do, as a thing to figure out, a thing to make happen. Instead of saying, well, I don't have that, they say, well, then my job is to go build that. Or I'm not like that. Then they say, well, then my job is to go become more of that. When I was starting to do online marketing for the first time, and I don't know how much of my story you know, but when I started doing online marketing, I was literally bankrupt. And I went from a place of bankruptcy to the point where I really committed to becoming successful at it. And in 18 months, I made $4.8 million, 4.6 collected. I mean, it was just a huge leap, right, in difference from bankrupt to multimillionaire in a span of 18 months. But what made that breakthrough wasn't that I had new opportunities. It wasn't that I had new technologies. It wasn't like, wow, there's the internet now. Those things were already there. I went from this level of thinking to this level of thinking. I used to say, well, I don't know how to build a web page. So I said, agenda, figure out how to build a web page. And I spent hours and hours and hours at nights, on weekends from my job, figuring out how to do that. And I said, well, I don't have one of those lists. You know, I don't have any subscribers. Nobody knows who I am. So I said, job, go build a list. Go get subscribers. Go add value and content out in the marketplace, and they'll come. I mean, just keep putting stuff out there. And I also didn't say, oh my gosh, well, I have that dream. I can't have that because I'm not like that. Because I wasn't a public speaker. I didn't know how to do video. I wasn't like, well, I'm not one of those video people. Well, I'm not a public speaker. So I said, you know what? I have to go learn that art. I have to go become a better speaker, a better communicator. I have to go become more confident. I have to go become a person capable of doing these things. I have to change myself to get there. I can't wait for circumstances to change so I can have my dream. Then our dreams would never happen. Something new is going to come into my life and make me lucky and blessed. And maybe I can't count on that forever. And maybe now, instead, I have to consciously design my life and say, okay, now, if I want to change, if I want my dream, something new has to come from me. I'm going to become a better person. I'm going to become a person who is more optimistic, who is more confident, who is more driven. Not because I am that now, but because we can grow. That you can become the type of person who you need to be to achieve your ideal life. You can start today living from your highest ideals, your highest sense of self, your strongest sense of self. You don't need permission. You don't need a guy like me to look at the video camera and say, you have now permission. But if you've been waiting for it, you have permission. It's like at some point in your life, you just say, okay, I have permission to become my best self. And by becoming your best self, you start to achieve your best things. You start to contribute better things. You start to become a better human being. You can do that now, today. So next time you're thinking about a big dream, don't think about the things that, well, I don't know how to do that, and stop. Think, I don't know how. So set it up on your calendar to go learn those things. I don't have that. Then set it up step by step to go build that. I'm not like that. Then set it up step by step to go develop those skill sets and those competencies so you can become that, and ultimately you can achieve that dream. It's there. It's waiting for you. Don't stop.